Hello, greetings. Welcome to Verbling. I'm teacher Oakley, and for the next hour, we are going to be looking at honorifics in English. We will talk about the common everyday use of honorifics. We'll look at some special honorifics and identify the abbreviations which are commonly used in English writing for these honorifics. I guess the place to start would be, what are honorifics? Well, many languages have them. They're sometimes used differently, sometimes to preface or go before a person's name, sometimes before their first name, sometimes before their surname. Sometimes honorifics in different languages are used after or without a name, or used after a name. Anyway, honorifics are the simple introductory titles. Some honorifics are actually titles that we use for people, things like Mr. and Mrs. These are common honorifics for normal people. And then, of course, we have the honorifics for not normal people, like Your Eminence, the Pope, or Mr. President. Sometimes these honorifics are kind of strange, like you don't say Mr. President Obama, you just say Mr. President. That's it. So anyway, we'll discuss all these differences and talk about using honorifics in English and your cultures to do some comparison as well. Okay, hello, Jorge Luis, how are you?
Hello, teacher. I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing okay, I suppose. Okay. We're going to be talking about honorifics in English.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Why oh my goodness?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the formalities in calling people. Yeah, I just want to say, hey man, hey girl. And that's it.
Okay, well, let's talk about the degree of formality in normal everyday life. All right. Okay. For English speakers, it is very common, like in a business environment, or okay, say it's a business environment. You're going to introduce someone as okay, or hey, have you met Mr. Smith? This would be very normal. Or in any kind of formal, even social situation, you meet your fiance's parents for the first time. For example, you would say, "Oh, it's very nice to meet you, Mr. Smith." The first time. Generally speaking, most of the time, however, very quickly, Mr. Smith, say I'm meeting him for the first time, Mr. Smith would say, "Oh, please just call me John." And then from now you have permission from then on, for the future, forever afterwards, you can just refer to him as John. Really, we use honorifics almost like we use the expression, how do you do? We only use that the first time we meet, and then never again. Now, not necessarily so. Some people, for example, I imagine if you met Mr. Trump, he wouldn't, I bet you, I totally bet you, he wouldn't say, "Oh, please call me Donald." He would probably, he'd probably call me the Donald. Yeah, right. Probably not. He would probably prefer to be called Mr. Trump. Some people are like that. They stand on formality, or they think they're so damn important that they need to be.
By the way,
Uh,
do you think uh, he can win the elections? He
no,
can win the elections? No?
no,
No way.
not a chance. No, and I think people that support him are dreaming. I think it's a possibility that he could win the primary, although even that's doubtful. Uh, he could win the primary, meaning that he would be the Republican candidate, but would the United States vote for him if it was Trump versus whomever, Biden, Hillary, Sanders, whoever? No, I don't think he has a prayer.
Mm,
He has a very strong base, but it's only, what does he have? 25% of the Republican Party. Okay, they're not. That doesn't mention. That's not all of America. Those are the people who are registered Republican Party voters. That doesn't include the great mass, the larger percentage who are unaffiliated, who don't have a party, and it certainly doesn't include the Democrats. So he has a very strong and loud supportive base, but they're 25% of 20% of the country. So no, I don't think he has a prayer.
thanks God,
Really?
because I don't like him.
Yeah.
He hates Latin people. It's appear he hates Latin people. I don't know why.
I think
Actually, he had issues with Miss Universe, which is from Colombia.
crazy. He's a lunatic. Okay, you know what? He has issues with all people who are not rich and privileged. He was born into money. He has no idea what it's like to actually have to work with your hands or to struggle. He has no clue, and it's very obvious. Anyway, let's get off that. Let's get back to our topic. Let me welcome other students to the class. Although it's interesting to talk to you, Jorge, I appreciate it. But let me say hello to Keiko. How are you? How's it going? Keiko, hello, hello.
Hello, teacher. I'm very well, thank you.
Okay,
And you?
I'm fine. I'm doing fine. Today, Keiko, we're going to talk about honorifics. Do you know what honorifics are?
They are words used to call someone generally before the proper name. For example,
Generally.
Mr., Miss.
Yeah, Mr. Yeah, right, exactly.
Your holiness, your
Your holiness. Thank you. Okay.
yeah,
That's it.
your highness.
That's right. All right, for a king or queen. Okay, we're going to look at some abbreviations and identify them and talk about them. You can go around and talk about them a little bit. In just a little bit, I'll do a screen share and we'll do that. But I have to ask you, Keiko, in Brazil, what honorifics are used, or what are they similar to in English, like Mr. or Sir or Madam?
Yeah, we have our honorifics in Portuguese. For example, to approach someone who is an authority, for example, religious or administrative or military or political authority, or even someone who is elder than us. For example, our mother or father or someone else.
Okay, well, let's talk. Okay, now that's an interesting aspect, especially as it relates to English. Many cultures and many languages have honorifics for to show respect to elders. Okay, that's actually a very important distinction, because in English we don't really do that. We don't have a special honorific for elders. Do you have such an honorific in Portuguese in Brazil?
Yes, teacher. For example, Senhor is like Mister, but
Right.
it is used to direct to someone who is elder than us, or who is a person with which we don't have much intimacy. We are not so close to him. And
Okay.
then we direct him with using Senhor, and then we have the gender, the feminine gender, Senhora, to direct it to a woman, which is the similar to Mrs. Senhora,
Okay.
Mrs.
Right.
Senhor, Mister. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. It's interesting. I mean, to make it I need to make a comparison. So I'm an American, and we'll talk about English honorifics, but I currently live in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, the honorifics are a bit different. Anybody who's older than you are, or even if they're younger than you, if they have a position of authority, as you say, any position of authority, you're talking to a police officer, or you're talking to someone in the social security department, and they're helping you do your social security or whatever. You need to address them as Po. That's it. No name involved. Excuse me, Po, could you help me fill out this form? You know, you walk into a police station for whatever reason, you need a police clearance. Pardon me, Po. You have to address them as Po. Even though I'm, 50 years old, if I'm talking to a 20-year-old police officer, I would address them as Po. Or anybody who's older than you. Absolutely. And then it's very interesting because people of about the same age. If it's a male, I address them as kuya, which means brother, basically, or big brother. And if it's a woman, I address them as ate, which is basically like big sister. It's kind of funny. And you don't use any name. You don't actually use their name with these honorifics. Interesting. And we don't have anything like that in English. We have no distinct word for just. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to the Donald Trump, or if I'm talking to somebody in a business meeting who's 20 years younger than I am, I'm still going to address them the same way, Mr. Smith, or whatever. Mr. Smith reminds me of. Start thinking about the movie there. Anyway, whatever. Okay, but anyway, that's an interesting distinction in English. We don't have really an honorific, a general honorific for older or authority, whatever. Okay, let me also welcome Carlos to the class. Hey, Carlos. Hi, how are you?
Hi, teacher. I'm pretty well, teacher, and you?
I'm doing okay. Carlos, are you comfortable using honorifics, or do you prefer to be more informal?
Sure, it depends. For example, if I meet someone in the company, I prefer to refer of that person by sir or miss, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There are no problem, for example, he's a young girl, but he's up than my level in my job. I say to her, Miss Carolina, Miss, I don't know.
Okay.
It's better be respectful in that way.
Right. Okay. Now, I was just saying that there is no general English honorific, but you're right. You bring up sir or ma'am. But again, it has has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with formality and respectfulness. So it's a little different. But yeah, okay, I understand what you mean. Here in the Philippines, it's very funny. I worked in a company there, and they called me Sir Oakley. Sir, and then your first name. So which I always found slightly uncomfortable to be called Sir Oakley. Just Oakley's fine. Now you're calling me teacher, and that is basically you're using that as an honorific. I don't. It doesn't bother me. I don't really. I talk to so many students that if they're more comfortable calling me teacher, then I'm totally comfortable with that. If you want to just call me Oakley, I'm totally comfortable with that. I don't really care. It doesn't really. Just don't call me Sir Oakley, okay? It weirds me out. All right. Okay. We have another student who's joined us, so I would like to welcome Eslam.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Great.
Okay. And where are you from?
I'm from Egypt.
From Egypt. Okay. Well, great. Let me ask you about honorifics in Egypt. Is it important to use to address people who are older or who are in authority with honorifics in your culture?
In some places, we must use it in some places, um, and some another maybe we don't use it in other. For example, on college and on maybe when dealing with any woman, so you use honorifics.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it has to do, okay, it has to do with gender or authority, pretty much?
Maybe.
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 I'm guessing. I don't know the answer. You know the answer. Okay. All right. Because it's slightly, the use, what I'm trying to get at talking to all you guys is it's a little bit different. In some cultures, it has everything to do with age. In Korea, for example, anybody who's older than you is automatically right, and it automatically must be engaged using honorifics, and you must be very respectful, not only in your language, but also your actions. It's extremely important. It has everything to do with age. In English culture, the use of honorifics is more to do with situational, formal versus informal, more than anything else, and has nothing really to do with age at all, or gender. So there are differences. That's what I'm kind of trying to give you the general idea before we get into the specifics. Let me also welcome Marcus to the class. Hi, Marcus.
Hello, Honorable Mr. Oakley.
I love it.
Uh,
Yeah, okay. By the way, thank you, Marcus, for reminding me. As just a silly activity at the end of the class, we're going to create our own honorifics, all right? So make some notes or start thinking about some how you would like to be addressed as your own honorific. The most honorable conqueror of all consonant sounds, an imperial ruler of all things grammatical. Yeah, okay. Start thinking about your own honorifics. That's Marcus. Actually, one kind of honorific one style of honorific are the classic cultural honorifics. You know, Mr., Ma'am, military, sergeant, lieutenant. But then, you know, really high up, fancy honorifics will will include the accomplishments of a person. For example, you're introducing somebody. If I'm introducing Obama, okay, Nobel laureate, because he won the Nobel Prize. You may include the accomplishments. Two-term president, Nobel laureate, cigarette smoker, Mr. President. Okay. So we also include sometimes very fancy accomplishments. So start thinking about that. Marcus, do you prefer to be more formal or more informal in like business situations, for example?
I prefer more informal because it's difficult in my job. It's difficult. Is formal. Normally, the treatment is informal. I prefer. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many people prefer that. I would agree. Okay, now, all right. Enough discussion. We're now going to. I'm going to share with you a list of prefixes for names or English honorifics, and we're going to identify them and maybe talk about them a little bit when we would normally use them. Jorge Luis, what is this first one here? I'll highlight them as we go along. Okay, what's this first one here?
You know what? I don't know.
You don't? Okay.
Mister?
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, okay. You're going to learn
I'm not
something.
sure. Because I know the next ones, but the
Yeah.
second, maybe magister or something.
No.
Master?
Okay. Now this is very strange. Actually, this is a little odd. It has to do. This did not exist 50 years ago. But as a result of the feminist movement in Western countries, we now have this honorific, and it's basically it's a combination of Miss and Mrs. And it sounds like Ms. I don't know how to write it. There's no way to write it. Really, it sounds like Ms. The proper way to use this. Have you ever heard this, Louise?
No.
Ms. Smith. Okay, here's the deal. All right, well, we need to look at this group actually altogether. All right, Jorge, where do I use Miss? Or when, dude?
When I want to refer to a girl who is, sorry, yeah, who is not married yet.
That's it. You got it. Exactly. And Mrs.?
Mrs. is when the girl got married.
That's right. You're somebody's wife. She's married. Okay. Now, Ms. is used when we don't know.
Okay.
We need to be formal, but we are not sure. Or sometimes, when in doubt, in other words, if you don't know and you need to be formal and address a woman, then you should use Ms. Okay, it's always acceptable. And some women, even though they're already married, or they're not married, if they have strong feminist tendencies, you really can't be wrong. So this is kind of the fail-safe. This is your safety honorific. Okay, they're not allowed to be offended if you use Ms.
Okay, can you please help me with the pronunciation in both words, the first one and the second one, because
yes,
for me sounds closer.
Okay, the first one is a Z sound, Ms. It's a voice sound, so you keep your voice going, Ms. Smith. And the second one is very much an S sound, Miss Smith.
Okay. And just for the record, here in Colombia, I would believe that if we have a doubt regarding to someone,
Uh-huh.
I mean the girl,
Yeah.
we use Miss.
Okay.
Even if you see that the woman is how can I say maybe higher than 30 years.
Yeah,
You
okay.
say, yeah, always say
Older.
Miss, and you don't get problems.
And frankly, I think that's the way it was in the United States like 30, 40 years ago. I think it was the same way. But now it's acceptable in formal situations or in business to use Ms. It's always acceptable to use Ms. So there you go. That's a fairly important point there. Okay, moving on. Keiko, actually, we should look at the next pair here and compare them. Mr., I'm sure you know. Yes? First one
Yes,
here is Mr.
is Mr. is used to direct respectfully to a man, to another man,
Okay. All right.
or to a man.
Okay, so what's in that case, what is master? Ah.
I think master has different meanings as a noun,
Well, yes
but
and no.
but um, maybe as an honorific, it is used to direct to someone who is your master, Raimundo.
Okay. Now, all right, if we were living a few hundred years ago or
Or a
several
teacher,
months
to
ago.
direct to a teacher.
No. Okay. You would be right a few hundred years ago. Yes, master. Okay. Sure, but okay, obviously this is in modern day Western society, this is just socially unacceptable, culturally unacceptable. We just can't do this anymore. Actually, it's very interesting. When I was younger, I mean, like when I was in a child or even in high school, I would get letters, maybe from companies, maybe whatever. Master Oakley Moody. This is actually an honorific for young men who are not considered adults yet. Boys, to put it bluntly. And it doesn't necessarily have to do so much with the Miss and Mrs. Jorge was perfectly correct in talking about marriage as being the defining factor. That is not the case with master and Mr. Master just means boy, not adult, and Mr. is for any male who is adult. The fact is, I don't think people use master anymore. Even for boys, they would just use Mr. But when I was young, this was extremely common, actually.
You know, Oakley,
Yeah.
I have heard master in some movies, especially in Batman. Master Bruce, Master Bruce.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So, all right. I should amend my comment. I don't think this is used by everyday, normal Americans very often. But exactly. So, in very formal situations, or frankly, for people who are very wealthy, or perhaps the British probably use this. They tend to overall be a little bit more formal than Americans. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah, you would have seen this in movies, British
Yeah,
movies,
and
or
you are
I think
and you
Home
are right.
Alone.
Yeah, the man is from British.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
what is the name? Uh, let me check.
Okay. Um, okay. But right. Where as opposed to Mr. Smith, you're right. This would be like Master Bruce, the first name, Master Oakley or whatever. Okay, when I got letters, they would say Master Oakley Moody. They would say my first and last name when I was young. So, right, like a servant, if you're really rich and you have a butler and a maid or whatever, they may speak more formally. The servants of a household may speak more formally, so they may call the young man Master Bruce and the young lady in the household Miss Lucy, like that. Mr. and Mrs. would always be the surname, Mrs. Smith, but the younger people, okay, Miss Lucy. Now this is semi-informal. If you're introducing somebody, it'd be Miss Lucy Smith, Master Bruce Smith, like that in a more formal situation. But of course, we don't have to worry about this in normal everyday life. Now, one other thing about Mr. and Miss, these common honorifics. If you are, okay, say you're sitting in a restaurant and you want to get the waitress's attention. Keiko, what are you going to say? You're trying to get the waitress. Let's say it's a female server.
Sir.
Sir, well, not sir. If it's a female, you might say, excuse me, miss. That's
Yeah.
perfectly acceptable. Or if it was somebody who's a little bit older, excuse me, ma'am. But it would be better to always say, excuse me, miss, because even older ladies would be flattered if you called them miss. They would be happy to be called miss. So I highly recommend just saying, excuse me, miss, could we get our check? No matter how old she is. Okay, if the server was a male, Keiko, what would you say?
Mr.
Yeah, or sir. Excuse me, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. An older lady that you don't know her name, you would call ma'am. Okay. It's madam, but nobody ever says madam. We use this kind of ma'am. All right. If it's an older person, you don't know who they are. Pardon me, ma'am. You dropped your gloves. You know, if you're at the opera and a woman drops her gloves. Pardon me, ma'am. You seem to have dropped your gloves. Would be how you would address her. Okay.
Teacher.
Yeah.
When we use Miss, Mr. and Mrs. Miss, Mr. and Mrs.
Mm-hmm.
We have to use the proper name. For example, Mr. Smith. In the case of Miss as well.
With Mr. and Mrs., yeah, you should use the proper name. It's a little bit rude to say, "Hey, Mister." Actually, it's considered slightly rude to say, "Hey, Mister, you dropped your hat." Excuse me, sir, you dropped your hat is considered much more polite. All right, or ma'am, sir. But miss, it's perfectly okay to to just say Miss. Excuse me, Miss, you dropped your gloves. All right? That's perfectly okay. And a young man would be no different. It would still be sir if you're trying to be formal.
Okay, teacher.
Okay.
Thank
There
you.
it is. You're welcome. All right. Well, that was the whole point of the class, is to learn these things. Okay, let's look at the next. Actually, we should look at the next. Whoops. Next pair here. Okay, Carlos. Rev.
Yes,
All
teacher.
right. Reverend and Father. What's the difference?
Mm, I am not completely sure, but reverend refer, for example, here as a priest for a church.
Okay. The most right and honorable Reverend Smith. Well, okay, Reverend Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Martin Luther King. Okay, these guys were actually Protestants. All right,
Okay,
not
it's a
Catholic.
person that manage some uh, re, religion or community.
Yeah, that's
Really?
right. So a not Catholic Christian leader of a church. Okay,
Okay.
so they're a reverend. All right, as opposed to Father,
Oh, okay.
which is Catholic. Okay. And how would you address a Catholic priest? Okay, you could say both of them are priests, but these are the honorifics. How would you address a Catholic priest? Carlos, if let's say his given name was David Brown, just make up a name. How would you address him?
Teacher, I don't know really who is David Brown. Sorry.
I just made up that name. It's just I'm imagining that there's a Catholic
Okay.
priest whose given name was David Brown. So how would you address him?
Father David. No?
Father David. Okay, very good. Or very often, very commonly, just Father.
Father, okay.
It's very common. And same thing with Reverend, actually. Right. Reverend David, or actually we often say Reverend Brown, or their whole name, Reverend Jesse Jackson, for example, Reverend Martin Luther King. But in common day-to-day casual talking outside the church, it's very common to just use the honorific only. It's perfectly acceptable. Well,
Just Father?
Just Father or just Reverend. Reverend, would you like to come over to our house for lunch? Perfectly normal, and more normal, actually. Only in very formal usage do we actually use their name. It's very common to just call them by their honorific. All right. Well, okay. Let's look at the next one here. Marcus. Doctor. Okay.
Doctor.
Who do we call doctor? Well, the doctor.
Medical man.
Dr. Jekyll. Okay. For example. Okay, now, who do we call a doctor? I know that sounds kind of like a stupid question. But there are really two kinds of people we call a doctor.
The medicals?
Sure, sorry, Jorge?
Yeah, the medical doctors.
Medical doctors. Yeah, that's the obvious one. And that would include a dentist, doctor of anesthesia, doctor of cardiac. Doesn't matter what doctor you're talking about. As long as he's got a medical degree, he's a doctor. Right.
Yeah.
Very good.
And the other one are people who get the high
Yeah.
level in studies after the master degree, the
Yes.
PhD.
Right. They have a doctorate. It's actually called a doctorate. That's right. PhD, a doctorate, a master's degree. Same thing. That's right. They could also formally be called doctor. Now, whereas you would call a medical doctor doctor all the time, and frequently in American society, for example, you would. It's very common to actually shorten or slang the honorific and say doc. All right, doc. Give me the news, doc. What's wrong with me, doc? Actually common to turn the honorific into a slang and use that only. More formally, of course, you'd say Dr. Brown, Dr. Jekyll. I have an appointment with Dr. Jekyll at 3 o'clock, like that. It is not very common to address people with a doctorate or a master's degree by the term doctor. Only in a very formal introduction would you ever bother to do so. Otherwise, you just call them Mr. Only if there's whatever they're speaking at an alumni dinner for the school where they graduated and got their doctorate, then you would address them that way, or any very formal. Okay, next one. Jorge Luis, attorney is what?
Alavia?
Yeah, exactly. Now, this honorific is, I've actually never in my entire life heard this used speaking. Possibly in a very formal introduction, similar to a doctor who has a master's degree. Introducing attorney Paul Williamson. Okay, fine. In an introduction, the normal life you would never say attorney Smith. You would never say that. Again, you would just simply address them as, well, Mr. Smith. When can we have an appointment to talk about my my case, whatever. All right, let's move on. Keiko, professor.
Professor is used to direct to a university professor, to someone who teaches at the university.
Yeah. Now
For
there
example, a lecturer.
Yeah. Okay. Now, all right. Well, here. Okay. Do you know the difference between? You're absolutely 100% correct for Americans. Absolutely true. Anybody who teaches in a university, there are student teachers, and you don't call them professors. Okay. But anybody else, if they have what's called tenure, if they're hired as a professor, yes, you would call them professors. However, in England, it's a little bit different. Do you know about that, Keiko?
No.
Okay,
teacher,
okay.
I don't know.
Let me attempt to explain. If you went to university in England, you should only address somebody as Professor Smith, whoever, if they are, usually they are the head of the department, or they have somehow distinguished themselves in a big way, whatever. They won the Nobel Prize or something. Otherwise, you have lecturer, as you said, lecturer Smith. Okay, they don't call everyone who teaches a professor. Usually it's the heads of departments.
Okay, teacher.
So it's a bit different.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that one I find that one a little confusing myself. Okay, Carlos, what is honorable? Who's this used for? Do you have any idea?
Could be a person that is, I don't know, maybe outstanding
Well,
in some way.
well, it could be. You're absolutely right. We can use this to create an honorific. Again, as I was mentioning earlier, you want to create, conqueror of the universe, the honorable and most holy teacher Oakley. Fine, it can be used as an adjective for an elaborate introduction and an elaborate honorific. It's possible, yes. But who do we address as Your Honor? Who should always be addressed as Your Honor? Do you have any idea?
No, teacher.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Especially professionally. Okay. A judge. If you guys ever go to court, find yourself in court in an English-speaking country, please, if you're going to talk to the judge, don't say, "Hey, judge." Don't do that. Excuse me, Your Honor. May I have a word, Your Honor? You have to address him as Your Honor.
It could be it could be great. You say, "Hey, judge."
Yeah, they're not going to take kindly to that, and they could, and actually, in the rules of the court, they can actually hold you in contempt of court. It's actually against the law. If they want to be, if they really want to be, frankly, a hard ass about it, if they really want to be really cruel about it, they could actually throw you in jail for not using Your Honor.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know that any, they really would. They would probably correct you. Please address me as Your Honor if you'd like to speak to me. They'd probably just correct you, but yeah, they certainly take exception to the fact, for sure. This is an important one. So when we introduce the judge, we would say the Honorable. Now this is a little strange because we'd also say judge, the Honorable Judge Smith, and then their surname. All right. Have you met? Now it's possible informally to say, "Have you met Judge Smith?" You would use judge, definitely. You would not say, "Have you met Attorney Smith?" You would never say that. Have you ever met Bob? Have you met Mr. Smith? Okay. But a judge, you would call judge. And if you were introducing him very formally, again, like at a special dinner or banquet or something like that, you'd say the Honorable Judge Smith. In the actual court, Your Honor, always. Very important. Okay. Look at the next pair here. Let's look at these together. Marcus. Okay. Marcus, if I'm talking to the president, how should I address him?
Okay, president is used to direct major position in company or countries. That's it, teacher.
Right. Okay. If it's the president of the company, it's a little different. You would probably just call him. You wouldn't say. If you're introducing him, you would call him by his position. President William Smith, CEO William Smith, Director of the Board William Smith, Chairman of the Board William Smith. Sure, you would give him his job title. This is very normal. Introducing somebody in a formal way. However, if you're speaking directly to him, you probably, if he's the president of a company, you would just say, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Smith." That's it. You wouldn't say it's a pleasure to meet you, CEO Smith. That would be totally weird, and you should never do that. Just address them by their name. However, Marcus, if you were going to meet Obama, how should you speak to him? You're shaking his hand. What would you say to him?
I don't know, teacher.
There we go. Good job.
Uh,
Nice job.
Mister? No. I
Yeah.
don't know.
May I help
Yeah.
you, Mr. President?
That's it. You got it. You got it.
Mr. President.
Mr.
Okay.
President, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. President. Holy smokes, I need to capitalize that P. Oh my goodness. Very important. All honorifics, by the way, capitalized, okay? Always in written language, any honorific must always be capitalized. Very important. Yeah.
And what if the president is a woman?
Good question. Yeah, all right. All right, that's actually interesting. It's not Mrs. President, it's Madame President. And here, oh, that's very interesting. Not ma'am, but you would actually be pronouncing the D, Madam President. It's a pleasure to meet you, Madam President. Yeah, okay. That's a good question. Now here's where you see that madam come in. All right. Let's see. Let's see if we're using that in a couple of years.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Madam President Hillary. Okay, let me go back because there's kind of a set here. Marcus, let me go back to you for a second. Governor.
Governor. Mr. Governor.
No. Now, this is weird. We would just say governor. That's it. Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you, Governor.
Okay, Governor. Used to direct person responsible administrator stated or condado. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
A state or a territory in some cases. Very similarly, we would just say senator if we're addressing him directly. Nice to meet you, Senator. Or nice to meet you, Congressman. More formally introducing them, of course, you would say Governor Jerry Brown, Senator Bob Dole, Congressman Bernie Sanders, whatever. Formally, you would say their entire name after any of these honorifics. But if you're talking to them directly, you would just call them by their actual position. It's only president that uses the extra honorific. Okay. Just in case you guys ever get a chance to meet a senator or a congressman or whatever. That's how it's done. Okay. Jorge Luis, back to you, Coach. Very common.
Yeah. Is the person who lead a team, who teach the sport, the coach.
And how would you address them?
Just coach.
Very often, just coach. Most commonly, just coach. Coach, I think I twisted my ankle. Right. Slightly more formally, you might say Coach Smith. Like when TV announcers are talking about, the team. I think Coach Smith has a very interesting game plan for today's competition. Like that. They often, a little bit more formally, just coach and the surname. Like announcers would do that. Okay. Last one here is officer, and I'm just going to do this myself because it's very vague. Okay, well, not really. It could be officer in a company or okay, well, actually, Keiko, you can help me out here. Who else would you address as officer?
Someone who is a bureaucrat a bureaucratic officer at a governmental institution, for example,
Maybe. Yeah.
or at a commercial or industrial company.
Could be. Now, it could be any of those things you just described as a very formal introduction. Yes. But there's a specific job title who, if I'm talking to this person, even though they wear
Justice officer.
The police, right?
The police. That's it. Excuse me, officer. Can you tell me how to get to the park? Is there a problem, officer? Was I speeding, officer? This is very common. You would address them as officer. Absolutely. Whatever you do, Keiko and everybody else, don't say this. Excuse me, officer. Was there a problem? Yeah, not good. Yeah. Okay. That's called a spoonerism. You shift the letters around. So you do that, you're gonna be in trouble. Was I speeding, officer? You're in trouble. Okay. All right. Let's talk about some less common titles. Monsignor. Carlos, who's a Monsignor? Any idea?
Yes, teacher is some person that lead in a top level in the Catholic Church.
That is correct. Absolutely correct. Perfect. I couldn't define it any better. Okay, the next two are also related, so Carlos, let's go ahead and look at those two. Who is a sister?
But just the sister.
Okay.
But I don't know. It's strange. but the pronunciation is sir, like sir.
No. This is just the abbreviation. It's very strange. I've never used it in my life, but I don't know many nuns. So a nun is a sister. So if you address a nun, a Catholic nun, you would just call her sister.
But actually, nobody said. I don't know. She's sister, or I know, but for example, I don't. In the Catholic religion, there are a woman like Price. There are not a sister.
Yes. But it's called nun.
Yeah, a nun is a sister. So if you don't know her name, you would just address her as sister. Just a nun walking down the street. But if you know her name, then you use her first name and the honorific. Sister Mary, Brother Paul. Brother, of course, being a
Carlos. Sorry, okay, Carlos.
Sorry.
Carlos.
What, Brother Carlos?
What? Carlos, are you there?
Yes.
It's like a monja in español.
Yes. No, I get it.
Okay. Yeah, a brother is like a monk.
Monk.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
That's it. Exactly. All right. Who's a superintendent? Do you have any idea what that is? Oh, I should have. I should also include principal. No. Principal is your pal. I always forget, is it a B or a P? The principal is your pal. Who are these people? The superintendent and the principal.
I don't know, teacher.
Okay,
I don't
these are school officers. Whoops. These
know.
are,
Okay, school.
okay, all right. The person most in charge of one school is the principal. In
Okay.
a private school, it may be headmaster. So you would address them as Headmaster Smith or Principal Smith. And a superintendent is usually in charge of 3, 4, 5, 6 schools, 10 schools, whatever. A district. It's like district manager for schools. Okay, so superintendent. Okay. There also, okay, I should mention, well, we're out of time, but superintendent can also be the person who does maintenance in an apartment building. But really, there would be a big difference how you address them. A superintendent of schools would be Superintendent Smith. The superintendent in your building would be, just call the super. We would make it more informal. Okay. Wow, we totally ran out of time. I could have, sorry about that. We didn't really get a chance to do the fun part, but I have to go now because I have another class. But, oh well, maybe I'll have to do a follow-up class where we can make up our own honorifics maybe next time. Out of time. Okay.